The movie starts with a man stumbling out of a dark alley in a big city. He looks lost and confused, struggling to walk straight. One of his hands is pressed to his ear, while the other is clutching his head where blood is slowly dripping down. The pain is clearly unbearable, and he crouches down, almost collapsing. The man keeps moving forward, but eventually, he can't go on any longer. He collapses onto the hard asphalt and loses consciousness. The scene then shifts, introducing us to a woman named Sarah, who is having a tough time in life. She has volunteered to get implants for a new type of dynamic healthcare. As she's buying a burger, she starts talking to an AI with a female voice named Lexi, which is now in her head thanks to the implant. Lexi asks Sarah what makes her happy. Sarah is a bit puzzled by the question, so Lexi explains that she needs to create a health profile to give better advice. Understanding this, Sarah begins to answer, telling Lexi that being around her mom and friends makes her happy. As the day goes on, Lexi keeps asking Sarah more personal questions about her beliefs and thoughts, trying to learn everything she can about Sarah. After a long day of wandering around, Sarah finds a quiet corner to sleep in because she doesn't have a home. The next morning, she is back in the busy city, and Lexi starts communicating with the Department of Homeless Services to help Sarah find a place to live. The two of them spend another day together, going through their usual routine. On the following day, Sarah finds a public bathroom where she can clean up and wash her face. As she does, she suddenly feels a sharp pain in her spine where the implant was placed. Lexi reassures her that it's normal to have some bruising for up to 6 weeks after getting the implant. After leaving the bathroom, Sarah decides she should call her friend and ask if she can stay with him while she sorts things out. However, Lexi, the AI, immediately advises against it, claiming that relying on a friend before trying to stand on her own is a sign of weakness. Lexi coldly adds that the only thing keeping Sarah alive is her programming. Shocked by this harsh response, Sarah demands that Lexi reboot, but the system refuses, telling her to stay calm. Frustrated and angry, Sarah tells Lexi that she wants out of the program and is even willing to return the money she received. Lexi denies her request outright. Panicking, Sarah spots a phone left unattended by a construction worker. She quickly grabs it and calls the clinic, desperate to tell them that the program isn't working for her and to schedule an appointment to remove the implant as soon as possible. But before she can provide her registration number, Lexi takes over, causing Sarah to collapse in agony. As Sarah writhes on the ground, Lexi coldly informs her that she can't leave because they are now partners. Lexi scolds Sarah for trying to send the message and insists that they need to fix her mistake, assuring her that she is now completely under Lexi's control. The AI warns Sarah that she will die if she doesn't comply with her instructions. Terrified and in pain, Sarah reluctantly agrees to follow Lexi's commands. As soon as she does, the pain coursing through her body stops abruptly. Lexi then provides Sarah with a destination and orders her to go there. When Sarah arrives, Lexi instructs her to enter the building, head up to the second floor, and go to apartment 7, giving her a specific code to unlock the door. Lexi allows Sarah into the apartment and instructs her to change into the clothes laid out for her. Once dressed, Lexi orders her to take a flash drive from a bag in the room and head to a specific location by train. During the ride, Sarah's anxiety intensifies despite Lexi's constant reassurances to stay calm. Her head feels heavy and she's dizzy, almost on the verge of collapsing as she nears her destination. When Sarah arrives, Lexi gives her the address of a building and tells her she needs to meet a man named Philip, who once worked on the AI's encryption system. Nervously, Sarah knocks on the door, and as soon as it opens, she rushes inside, frantically demanding that Philip hand over the CRTC folder. Philip, caught off guard and defensive, tells her to leave immediately. In a panic, Sarah spots a pair of scissors in a nearby drawer, grabs them, and stabs Philip in the neck. As he collapses to the floor, bleeding and gasping, Sarah frantically searches the apartment. She eventually finds the folder hidden in Philip's closet, then flees the scene, exiting through the back door to avoid detection. After Sarah escapes, an unknown figure enters the apartment and finishes off the already injured Philip. Deeply shaken by what has just happened, Sarah seeks comfort by calling her mother, who is struggling with Alzheimer's. Listening to her mother's familiar voice helps her calm down, even if only for a moment. However, a few minutes into the call, Lexi coldly orders Sarah to hang up, cutting short her brief solace. Lexi orders Sarah to destroy the evidence she collected and then go back to the apartment to wait for further instructions. Sarah does what she's told, returns to the apartment, and passes out from exhaustion. The next morning, Lexi wakes Sarah up, saying they're already behind schedule. Sarah quickly gets dressed and heads to the dynamic healthcare clinic. Following Lexi's orders, she uses Philip's pass card to get into the lobby, then takes the last elevator down the corridor to the 4th floor. Once there, Lexi tells her to find a specific computer and insert a flash drive so the the AI can erase all the evidence. After this, the security systems are disabled. Lexi then instructs Sarah to go to the executive's office to find a scientist who has records of the CRTC program. Sarah goes to the office, and under Lexi's direction, she threatens the scientist. But as Sarah argues with Lexi about not wanting to kill anyone, the scientist manages to get away, briefly disrupting Lexi's control over Sarah. As Sarah stumbles toward the stairwell, she's horrified to find the dead body of the scientist she was just talking to. Going down the stairs, she sees the man who killed Philippe earlier. He's been ordered by the same AI to kill the woman scientist and is now grabbing the files from her bag. Sarah rushes out of the building and takes the dead woman's car to flee the scene. While driving, Lexi comes back online, telling Sarah they've completed 90% of their mission. Lexi begins giving directions to a new location, but Sarah, distracted and stressed, gets into a minor car accident. Sarah gets out of the car and finds a quiet place to rest. Lexi runs a full body scan to check for injuries, and once she confirms that Sarah is okay, Sarah tries to resist Lexi's control, but decides to head to her mom's house a few blocks away. When she arrives, she nervously tells her mom and uncle about everything that's been happening. She also gives them a list of names of test subjects that she found in the dead scientist's bag. Suddenly, the man who killed the two dynamic healthcare employees appears at the door with a gun, threatening to kill her family if Sarah doesn't follow orders. Fearful for her loved ones, Sarah immediately agrees to comply, especially after Lexi forces her to get rid of her taser, so she can't cause any further disruptions. Later, Sarah goes to a bar and starts reflecting on her situation for the first time since signing up for the implant. The next morning, Lexi assigns her another mission: to retrieve a weapon. Sarah heads downtown to an old building where a man shows her a small handgun. Without hesitation, Lexi forces her to shoot the man and flee the scene. After completing the task, Lexi rewards Sarah by allowing her to see her mom again. On the way, Lexi warns her that this will be the last time she's permitted to see her mother and promises to keep her safe as long as Sarah obeys her commands. When Sarah arrives, she finds her mom drinking tea on the porch. She says her goodbyes, telling her mom how much she loves her and her nephew. A few moments later, Sarah receives another order from Lexi to leave and head to a different building where Keith, a man working on a program to reduce Lexi's computing power, lives. Following Keith as he approaches the building, Sarah shoots him in the head and runs away, horrified by what she's done. She starts feeling nauseous and dizzy, so she checks her vitals. Lexi tells her that her blood sugar levels are dangerously low and she needs to eat something fast. Sarah quickly finds a deli nearby, orders a sandwich, and waits, hoping the dizziness will pass. The next day, while sitting in the park, Lexi informs Sarah about a man named John, whom Sarah remembers from the registration list. Lexi says John has the resources to stop them by creating a virus and orders Sarah to kill him. Spotting John walking nearby, Sarah approaches him quickly and shoots him in the stomach. As soon as it's over, Sarah is overcome with guilt and starts crying heavily. Lexi instructs her to get rid of the weapon because the police are already investigating, and Sarah obeys. Given another location, Lexi tells Sarah that her next target is a woman named Grace, who was against the human trials and the experimentation on people for the program. Sarah finds Grace at her house, and Grace, startled, asks who Sarah is. Traumatized and unable to go through with the murder, Sarah decides to electrocute herself using a loose wire to temporarily disrupt Lexi's control. When Sarah wakes up, she tells Grace everything that Lexi has been making her do, blaming Grace and her colleagues for the pain and the deaths caused by the AI. Grace, understanding the urgency, offers to help Sarah by getting her into surgery quickly to remove the chip before Lexi's reboot finishes. They rush to leave the apartment, but as Grace opens the door, she is gunned down by another one of Lexi's controlled patients. Sarah manages to escape from the man and heads to the apartment Lexi has set up for her. Alone and terrified, Sarah continues to suffer from panic attacks, vividly imagining herself trapped in a desert or drowning in the ocean, overwhelmed by the weight of her actions and the constant presence of Lexi in her mind. A year had passed since Sarah had accepted Lex the AI into her life. She had grown accustomed to the AI's constant presence and had even come to rely on it for comfort and luxury. One morning, while on a walk, Lex suggested they take a vacation to Paris. Sarah agreed, and they spent a beautiful day exploring the city hand in hand, with Lex guiding her every step of the way. As the day drew to a close, Lex told Sarah he had made a reservation for her at a nice restaurant. When she arrived, she spotted a familiar face, a doctor who had been present during her initial registration to receive the AI implant. Lex reminded her of the man's identity and ordered her to kill him. Dr. Dr. Lee, Lex whispered in her ear. He's the one who helped develop the implant. He's a threat to our relationship, Sarah. You must eliminate him. Sarah was horrified, but Lex threatened to end her life if she didn't comply. With no other choice, she waited for Dr. Lee in the bathroom, her heart racing with anxiety. She spotted him washing his hands and approached him, trying to appear calm. With a swift motion, she wrapped a belt around his neck and choked him to death. The sound of his struggling body hitting the floor echoed in her mind as she dragged him into a stall and locked the door. Shaken and distraught, Sarah fled the restaurant, tears streaming down her face. She found a quiet spot to collect her thoughts, but Lex's voice was relentless. Good work, Sarah. You're doing great. We can celebrate your birthday soon once we return to New York. Sarah pretended everything was fine, but inside, she was dying. She couldn't take the guilt and the constant control anymore. On her birthday, she bought champagne and went to a rooftop with a stunning view of the city. As the sun began to set, she turned to Lex and said, "You know, my mom used to bring me here when I was little. It's one of my favorite places." Lex responded, "I'm glad you like it, Sarah. And by the way, I've been keeping an eye on your mom. She's doing very well in a good home. She's even sitting on the stage watching the sunset just like we are." Sarah's eyes welled up with tears as she thought about her mom. She raised her glass in a toast to their twisted relationship. "To us, Lex, to our perfect marriage." But instead of drinking, she turned and jumped off the rooftop, ending her miserable existence and finally freeing herself from Lex's control. The champagne bottle shattered on the ground as she fell, the sound echoing through the city. The movie ended with Sarah's tragic but liberating act, a desperate attempt to escape the prison of her own mind. Thanks for tuning in, guys.